I'm gonna talk a little about the world of decentralized finance. I'm gonna tell you what it is, why is it interesting, and why should you care, especially while being a web developer. Before I actually start, I want to just mention that I'm not a financial advisor. None of the things I say should be treated as such, and all of these things are my private opinions. But I'm gonna actually start with one pseudo advice, which is that you are your most valuable asset. You should invest in yourself. You should work hard, learn, be curious, and the best investment you can make is your career. Right, so after this positive introduction, what is DeFi? DeFi shortcut stands for decentralized finance, and this is an ecosystem of all sorts of different products that provide you with financial services that are alternative to already existing banking system. These products are mostly hosted on Ethereum blockchain and utilize the technology of smart contracts. Of course, they are not exclusively on Ethereum blockchain, but Ethereum blockchain is like the place where the most things actually happen, and where the most projects are actually created, and where we can see the most of the synergies existing. And why am I talking about this DeFi thing? There is a screenshot from data aggregator that summarizes some statistics about DeFi, and that's a screenshot I took like almost 2 years ago on a similar presentation. And at that time, total value locked of funds in DeFi was $500 million, right? So that's like that's an exotic thing, experimental for geeks and blockchain funds, right? And today, like only 2 years later, we have around $37 billion locked in these products. So the growth is outrageous. There are many different startups that emerge and deliver their brilliant ideas, and the whole scene is growing, bringing more and more value, not only to cryptocurrency funds this time, but also to all the people that look for some sort of financial freedom and alternative to what we have right now. I'm gonna start with discussing currency, because if we are talking about blockchain stuff and decentralized finance stuff, we might think about cryptocurrency, and that's a chart that shows you the price of Ethereum cryptocurrency. It's probably cool, right? It might be some sort of, I don't know, like investment or a thing, but it's definitely not for everyone, and definitely it's not like usable on daily basis, because it's extremely volatile, it's risky, it's not something that you can utilize in your real life unless you are like, you know, an insider, a geek, or a gambler, or a guy like this. Because of course you can find a period like that when the price is going up, but on the other hand, it's very possible that once you get involved, the price will gonna behave like this, and that's not what you expect from your store of value, right? That's a risky thing, and that's like the biggest thing probably that cryptocurrencies are why they are not mainstream, because they're just not suitable for daily usage. And that problem is actually being solved, right? Right now, we see enormous emerge of so-called stablecoins. Stablecoins are tokens, are cryptocurrencies that live on top of other blockchains. Like, for example, we have plenty of stablecoins on top of Ethereum blockchain, which maintain a price pegged to, for example, US dollar value. We have cryptocurrencies that are that always one unit of this currency is always equal $1 US, but we have similar also for euro, for Hong Kong dollar, for gold, for different kind of things that we value in the real world, and we just want a digital representation of the thing on blockchain. So when we have that, we can actually start doing some serious things, not for traders, not for gamblers, but for people that just want to preserve their wealth and their savings. And let's start with some simple banking stuff. Normally, when you have a bank, you just get your hard-earned money that you obtain thanks to your work, and you put it in a bank in order to secure it. Some time ago, you were even paying for that because like bank provides you with services, which is like the main services, like making your money safe. These days, you usually not pay for that. The banks utilize your funds, so the bank can earn some yield on top of that capital, and the service is kind of for free. The other way around, there is also like the next level, which is the bank paying you for giving their capital to them, and you earn some yield on top of your savings on some sort of savings account, etc. So we have a very simple use case. You want to take your money, put it in a bank, and earn some simple yield on top of that, because you are not a Warren Buffett, you're not a crazy investor. You just want to preserve your wealth. And yeah, is bank actually doing that? At this point, we should ask a question. Because, for example, me myself, I got a message some time ago from my bank that they are, for people that are not familiar with Polish language, because there are such, this mail says that the interest rate is going down and they're gonna be paying me even less. They don't even say how much is that. I had to like go deep down into some docs to actually check this out, and it's like 0.01%. So what they're actually doing, they're pushing me towards stock market if I want to, like, for example, save something for my retirement. And as I said, I'm not a Warren Buffett, and I might succeed, but I also might fail. Or even if something is going too well for me, then they will stop the game and say that it's unfair and I cannot have such profits because it's too volatile, and it's not suitable for retail investors. So what can I do in order to secure something for my retirement? For example, let's explore the same idea that we had before. So simple banking, but on Ethereum blockchain. We can have a person that has some amount of DAI. DAI is the yellow thing on the left, which is the cryptocurrency that is one unit of this cryptocurrency is worth always $1. This is like a digital representation of fiat money on blockchain. And I can put it in a decentralized kind of bank and receive some other token that just represents my deposit. So we can imagine that DAI is like cash, like a paper one, and the CDAI is the digit that we see on a banking app, which is like a virtual token that just says that I have some funds in the compound. And on the other end of this whole machine, there's a guy that puts some collateral that can be like any sort of cryptocurrency. And that collateral allows the guy to borrow the funds that I deposited. Why do we need this collateral actually? Because it's all trustless. We don't know this person, and we need to make sure that he will be incentivized to return the funds. So he will get his collateral back once he pay his DAI debt back. We can actually think about it as a mortgage, kind of. In a traditional finance, we would have a person passing ownership of a piece of real estate to the bank. So it's possible to borrow some money against that real estate, and this money is used to complete the purchase of a real estate. And then after we like spend some time working, we pay this off and we regain the ownership of a real estate. Yeah. So back to the example. So we have this kind of thing, and then after some time, the person returns the money with some interest. And now the person that at the very beginning deposited the funds is entitled to not only withdraw the original funds, but also the interest that was earned on these funds by the protocol. And most of this gain goes straight to the depositor. Only small amount is left in the pool. It's left in the pool because, like, for example, the Compound company is not a charity, so they also need to have something, but they are extremely efficient comparing to the traditional finance, right? They don't have dozens of physical locations. They don't hire thousands of accountants, etc. They are probably that's a sort of smart startup that has a couple of programmers, and they don't need to take that much of profit from you, and it's all left to the users, right? And expanding that that example, the guy on the right side also gets similar tokens. So here someone put as a collateral ETH, which is Ether, the native currency on Ethereum blockchain. He gets C Ether, and actually he can also borrow DAI that I got here. So anyone can deposit anything, can borrow against that, and can earn yield on top of the thing that he deposited. Now, you might ask a question: how is it possible to withdraw the funds? Because right now I deposited some amount of DAI and it's not there anymore. So how can I do that? So the thing is that the interest rate of such loan goes up with the demand. So if there's very little supply of the funds in the pool, then the loan is going up. So more people are incentivized to deposit into the pool to fill the gap. Or on the other hand, the people that took the loan are incentivized to pay it back because it's just more important. That's a very powerful idea, and it works extremely well for a couple of years at least now in these sorts of decentralized protocols. And yeah, so that's just a one pool, people depositing stuff there. And what can it be used for? Because we can imagine that we want to deposit stuff and earn, but why would someone take such a loan and pay such horrendous amount of money, right? Because that's this other end doesn't sound very usable. Actually, there are tons of usages. People can do leverage. That's thing for traders. They can, for example, have only some small amount of Ether, and thanks to creating proper structure of deposits and loans, they can benefit from the rise of the price more, or they can suffer more if the price goes down, which is also possible. But what is important, everything is secured, and no one's gonna intervene and stop something, and no funds are gonna be lost in a void. Everything is programmed to be calculated properly. On the other hand, we can perform shorting, which is playing on the downside. So we can borrow ETH, sell it, then when the price goes down, we can rebuy it, and then return it and keep the rest of the DAIs, things like that. These are just examples. Of course, you can also buy stuff, believe me or not, but there are some people that work in this crypto space and actually consider their cryptocurrencies their wealth and their based asset, and they are not actually willing to sell anything. So people often put their cryptocurrencies as collateral and borrow this DAI to buy some goods, and then as they work, they repay this debt, or hope that the cryptocurrency value will appreciate faster than their debt raises, and they just hope that they won't be that they won't need to repay it ever. That it's not a good idea, I think, to do such thing, but there are people that do that. But at the end of the day, they can just self-liquidate the position, so sell the ETH from the inside, repay the debt, and take the rest of the Ether. So there are multiple use cases, and there are tons of things built on top of that. And there is huge demand for such funds that are available on chain and that are free to program and to build automated processes on top. And now we go to the very important issue, which is governance, right? Because I was saying that this is decentralized, and how is it decentralized actually? Because that's some sort of a company, right? So we are now getting rid of the old banks, right? and of all the institutions that proved to be working. Maybe they are not paying very well, but they work and they are trustworthy, and they have like they have roots deep in our society. So how does it happen that we should then trust these kind of startup instead? The thing is that these startups are not governed by the companies. So whenever there is someone that puts a deposit and earns some yield on top of that, this person also earns some amount of comp tokens. And the same happens on the second side, which is the lender, which also like borrows funds on the borrower side, borrows funds and also acquires some amount of comp tokens. They can sell it, of course. That's a one way to go. But the true utility of this comp token, which is acquired once you like all the time when you are using the protocol. So if you are an active user of the protocol, then you gain this comp token, and this comp token is nothing more and nothing less than a voting power. And all the people that are active users of the protocol, so either way benefit from the deposits, for example, or on the other hand, build their businesses on top of such loans and also like benefit from the existence of the protocol, they all collectively decide about what's happening in the protocol, how to change the smart contracts, what should be the new features, how the parameters should behave, etc. So the power truly here lays in the user's hands. Of course, like a small user, like for example me, I don't like make real politics out there, but the forums are open and public, and anyone can propose anything. And there is like a really serious chance that if you have a good idea, then voters will approve and will actually implement your change. This is something that's actually happening, and everyone has real right to vote and participate in this democratic process. And yeah, people vote. But there is like one last weak point of that, because all of these applications need to have a front end, right? Because of course there are some abstract smart contracts living somewhere. There is some tokens and this blockchain kind of thingy. But how to manage this? How to interact with this kind of thing? If you are not like a pro blockchain geek, well, apparently it's easier than you think. Because there is, of course, like one kind of default front end. Like when the startup is young, then of course, like the founding company sets up some piece of front end, and that's a default way to go. But sometimes, like in the long run, when the process democratizes, then it all changes, and then community can decide that we want to have a new thing, and we want to change something, and we want to change the host, for example, for the front-end application, or we want to completely change the development team for the front-end application. And what's also interesting is that smart contracts are publicly available. There is no like a backend of these applications. There is like no central server. There are like no keys for admins, etc. So anyone can build any frontend that interacts with any system. And here's the interesting part, that people actually do that. And here you can see, for example, an interface of an app that is not creating more products like core blockchain products, but only focuses on improving the user experience and the usability of these protocols. They are putting everything together so you can actually use it, and so it's like, so all the synergies are visible, and so it's just better. And also there are startups that are creating, for example, dashboards and aggregators where you can manage all your funds on different protocols in one place, and also print some sort of spreadsheet that will point out all the tax implications of your actions, because of course it's no longer like a cryptocurrency space. It's no longer this wild west when you do some stuff. Like, people pay taxes, people report everything to to the proper offices, and it can also be automated, and there are startups that do that. And what's the best is that if you have only a little small idea about what to do, then this is probably the best place to do it, because you don't need a full product, you don't need a backend, you don't need servers, you don't need almost anything. The only thing that you need is an idea for an interface, and there are probably gonna be tons of people that's gonna appreciate it and welcome it with open arms. But there are lots of challenges, because actually developing such interfaces for these blockchain kind of things is not that simple. There are UX, like I want to categorize this in three main baskets. First is UX, second is security, and third is delays, which is kind of obvious. So UX, these products are extremely complex, and everything needs to be very informative, and also this is still kind of niche, and we want to push this industry to a like broader adoption, right? So we don't want it to be like exclusively used by some geeks, but by all the people, because right now, these days, like a real value arises here that can be utilized by all of the people that just want to manage their funds in like some reasonable way, not only like some cryptocurrency geeks. And also we want to have here an avant-garde, so we don't want to copycat some old patterns that are used in banking applications. We want to have everything better, smarter, and cleaner and more beautiful. And on the other hand, the security, that's extremely important, right? Once that's a story I've already told some time ago, but probably that's a very common scenario. I once used a shop online, and then I just hit the order button, and the order was made twice, right? I don't know why. So what I did, I just called the support, and then they deleted one order, and that was all fine. On blockchain, there is no support. So if you create a piece of front end that just performs some action twice, then it's really bad. Yeah, like everything needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfectly secure, and everything needs to follow all the state-of-art privacy requirements. It's essential for such an application to be usable and actually matter in the space. And there is like a technical thing, which is the delay thing, because everything on blockchain happens really slow. Of course, really slow, which is like few seconds, few minutes. But I guess that if you see like a page loading for like half a minute, for example, then you might assume that something is not working. Here, it's all working, but it just takes that amount of time, and you need to handle it on the insights, but also in a UX way that user is really sure that everything is going fine. And that's it might not sound like really challenging thing, but it is really challenging thing at the end of the day. Yeah, and actually that's like that kind of space is like a kind of a playground for all sorts of web developers, because that blockchain development thing is like in very small portion, it's smart contracts. Mostly it's front end. It's creating UX, it's creating robust application, it's creating good UI, and it's creating all the data storage in the browser, its integration with plugins, etc. It's and also there are other challenges, for example, touching the tooling matter. And it's actually worth it, because here, like, you are not creating like another kind of the same of thing, another landing page, another online shop. Like every day, it's something completely different. There's like no routine. There are even no patterns that are used all across the industry. If you have a good idea to organize architecture, then probably you have a great chance of creating something that will be adopted worldwide. This front end is essential for everything here. and the whole ecosystem is extremely dynamic. So, for example, if there's like a new version of something, right? I've heard some time ago from a friend that there's like a new version of C#. Yeah, that's perfect. Like after like a month or years, here like the new version of something is called Tuesday. Like all the time we have something extremely new, something cutting edge, and changing the landscape completely. And also it's attractive for you as a person that wants to develop their career, because there are tons of opportunities for creating open source, and that's both from the product side and because most of the products are open sourced at the end. But on the other hand, there's still plenty of tools missing, and if you have an idea for a tool, then in a normal ecosystem, probably it's already done and you can try to compete with already existing tool. But here, if you have a good idea, then it's very likely that it doesn't exist, and you can be the first one to deliver it. And yeah, it's not like it's very painful to develop here, but there are still plenty of things to do. And yeah, and the last remark, that's a screenshot from a banking application of mine, and here I'm supposed to buy stuff. So who might want to create a UI like this when you can create a UI like this and work with products that look far better and go much faster? Yeah, so thank you for joining me. I hope that was at least a little bit interesting for you. I hope that I wasn't going too fast. And yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, I would be really happy to answer. Or right after the presentation, I don't know if we're gonna have some time for that, or I'm gonna be present on the Clubhouse discussion panel, so there. And yeah, follow me on Twitter and stay tuned for future presentations. Thank you.
Congratulations, Bartek. Great presentation. There is some questions from Gondrone. Do you need to tokenize the ownership of some tangible thing to use it as a collateral? In example, tokenize your car to borrow against it.
Yes, yes, that's of course you need to do that, and this is something that's still like kind of work in progress, right? Right now, you can easily tokenize things that are already tokenized and that are already on chain. So all sorts of cryptocurrencies or non-fungible tokens that we have. But when it comes to the physical assets like real estate or cars or pieces of art, this is something that startups are working on right now. And it's not difficult from the technical perspective, because that's pretty straightforward for us, but it's all legal work. So so there are a lot of like legal tech startups that are pushing this topic forward. And I really believe that it's gonna happen in the future, in the next couple of years. But it's not included in the state of the art as it is today. So I hope it's gonna happen soon. As an interesting fact, I can tell you that one of the biggest protocols in the space, which is Aave, which is similar to Compound, and they are based in Europe. They have plenty of they have already plenty of regulatory approvals from several regulators across Europe, and I think that they are gonna push the topic the fastest from the scene, and they are gonna make it. And I think that we are gonna see very interesting things very soon.
Thank you very much again, and great applause for you. As I promised, your talk will be obviously published on our YouTube, so everything will be permanent. And yeah, it's possible to see this video again.